Chapter 37, A Monk's Debt of Gratitude. Yunshin slowly drank the Thunder Immortal's treasure wine. As he drank and activated the Zhong family dynamic training, a strange phenomenon occurred. New qi slowly accumulated in his middle dantian. He looked through his body. There was no change at the Baihui acupoint at the crown of his head. Because of this, he needed to distance himself from futile desires. This was why Yunshin didn't lean on the kindness of the Lord of the Desolate Fortress. He didn't have high expectations, but he felt his strength draining a little. At times like these, even the power of his middle dantian was of no use. Despite experiencing something good, his mood was sinking. The Lord of the Desolate Fortress, who wore a mysterious smile, came into his view. It was the first time he found her annoying. Yunshin looked around and clasped his hands together. I thank the many heroes who have witnessed this rite of passage. The humble etiquette of the spirited young man was a picturesque sight. One by one, people started to look pleased. They began to murmur among themselves. Is he a descendant of the Ma family? Indeed, the spirit of a noble family doesn't abandon its descendants. He intends to stand alone without relying on his family. Isn't that the demeanor of a grandmaster? He will establish his own legacy someday. Yunshin bowed once more and descended from the stage. He passed by his maternal grandfather, Ma Yun-jiok, who trembled slightly, and stopped at Ma Seien's feet. Since Ma Seien was kneeling on one knee, Yunshin had to look down at him. Ma Seien's face was filled with a sense of emptiness. His thick eyebrows drooped as he wore a vacant expression. Yunshin could somewhat empathize with him. The boy, having discarded his pride first, would have fully submitted to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to discuss succession. Though it was a decision that would determine Ma Seien's life, Yunshin brushed it off with a drink. He sipped the Thunder Immortal's treasure wine he had earned himself and spoke of the martial world. Wandering alone in the martial realm. It meant he was content with roaming the world alone as a warrior of the Desolate Fortress. Anyone would feel a sense of futility. Yunshin opened his mouth. You look like you'll become a good family head. What? He walked past Ma Seien, who flinched and looked up. It was confirmed today. His maternal grandfather, Ma Yun-jiok, was not as good as the Sword Immortal of Zhongnan. Despite designating his two grandsons as successors, he kept an eye on Yunshin. If he could see the state of the upper dantian, his behavior would have been different. The Sword Immortal seemed to have sensed my constitution. Facing his bustling maternal family reminded him of the Sword Immortal of Zhongnan and Weiji Maiwa. The peaceful days of training. He thought spending the rest of his life in a famous mountain filled with the immortal energy of Zhongnan Mountain wouldn't be bad. I hope that life lasts at least 30 more years. Praying to Buddha and Yuan Chenzuen, he left the banquet hall. Ma Jin was already waiting for him, having left ahead of him. Confirming there was no one around, Yunshin asked directly. Have you not married, Captain? What? Aren't you the eldest son of the Ma family? You seem to be in your prime, yet there's a commotion about succession. I can't understand any reason for it. The scar crossing Ma Jin's face twisted slightly. He seemed somehow burdened. At that moment, Chung Myong leaned in from beside Yunshin, smiling brightly. He had also watched Yunshin's coming-of-age ceremony. Shouldn't lightning flash, no? I'll tell him. Go ahead. Chung Myong waited until Ma Jin, who had turned his back, was quite far away. Yunshin, looking at the two with a puzzled expression, quickly closed his eyes and questions. Even a moment of time was precious. He was contemplating his middle dantian when it happened. When the captain was in a white uniform, he returned from a mission holding Miryo's hand. You mean Senior Beck Miryo? He opened his eyes. Chung Myong smiled casually. Yeah. Back then, she was a little girl. About this tall. Chung Myong tapped his waist and continued speaking. They said she was brought from a sect with secret transmissions. She was to become a major force of the Desolate Fortress. But that wasn't the problem. The mission site was Xinjiang, a battlefield where the remnants of the destroyed demonic cult were rampant. The demonic cult? Yunshin asked reflexively. He knew it as the place where the Kunlun sect, once counted among the 9 great sects, had perished together. They had assisted in founding the Ming dynasty but became a deceptive religion. He had heard the stories of the old cult, where the supreme master of the demonic sect, known as the Heavenly Demon, often appeared and caused chaos. Yeah. It was a dangerous place for someone in a white uniform. The captain, who wanted the position of the Azure Dragon Squad, volunteered. They completed the mission, but during a fight with a powerful practitioner in Xinjiang, Mayong trailed off. The smile that usually hung on his lips faded. Seeing Yunshin urge him with a look, he sighed and spoke again. He suffered a blow from the internal family unarmed arts. It was a vital point. The enemy struck his face with a leg technique, and the opponent dodged while closing in. What? They said he was a vicious fellow. Some seniors who went on the mission with him became captains, but even those not on good terms with him don't mention that incident. Since then, Captain Ma has been unable to perform a man's duties. That's why Miyo regards him as a benefactor. How could she not? I understand. In fights between masters, it was said to be common to rise using the body. If one had learned the demon's light, they couldn't avoid using leg techniques, and lifting a leg to kick was akin to exposing the vital points at the center. The martial world was a perilous place. Injuries leading to disability were not uncommon. A young Ma Jin in a white uniform came to mind. Yunshin slowly opened his mouth. Kunlun sect's Cloud Sword Dragon, Shailin's Buddha's Light Flow. I understand they are techniques for moving through the air. I'd like to see them. Mayong smiled. It just so happens that the next mission might be in Hanam. We'll cooperate with Shaolin, so if luck is on your side, you might see it. Buddha's Light Flow, I mean. A month of rest was granted after the coming-of-age ceremony. It was a meaningless affair. Yunshin wanted to go on missions without rest. It might be a good idea to settle in Hanam in advance. Ma Jin, seated in the chief seat of the office, said. He interpreted Yunshin's usual gaze as something strangely awkward. Yunshin didn't mind and asked, "What exactly is the mission?" "Annihilation. In this mission, we will sever one arm of the Blood Flame sect. If we're lucky, we might learn of their main headquarters." Taking a sip of tea, he spoke again. "There was an apostle I fought while you were capturing Stealthy Demon. He was entirely black-haired. Not a single red hair remained. A monster surpassing the Bloodmaster's sword. We've tracked his movements. Did he move from Shurangxi to Hanam? They say his trail ended at Pyongjeong Mountain in Hanam. That's Shailin's territory. Isn't Shaolin located on Mount Song in Jingju? That's quite a distance. They are the foremost orthodox sect. It's said that all martial arts under heaven originate from Shaolin. There are few sects in the Central Plains where Shaolin martial arts haven't permeated. The number of secular sects is countless. You can consider all of Hanam province under Shailin's influence. You, being from Hanam, must feel it." Ma Jin turned his gaze as he mentioned Yunshin's origin. As his uncle, his heart seemed troubled. Yunshin nodded, surprised in another aspect. It was the first time he saw a supreme master of the desolate fortress respect a martial sect so much. In an era where the identity of the group one belonged to was their identity. It was said that few among the experts of the desolate fortress observed the martial world from a perspective of the people. To them, martial artists were potential rebels with power and rogues disrupting public order. Mount Song's Shaolin. Truly a sect that reaches the world. Their power and reputation were stronger than anywhere else in the martial world. Yunshin felt his heart pounding for once. Mount Song was the birthplace of martial arts in the Central Plains. He wondered what inspiration Shailin's martial arts would give him. But isn't dealing with the Blood Flame sect something the Shaolin can handle? Though monks chant to destroy evil and uphold righteousness and eradicate demons and evil, this is the desolate fortress. We can't just sit idly by. We'll personally sever their heads. Apostles, and many Bloodmasters' swords. What's the composition of the team? Demon Wings Squad 1 and Squad 2 will accompany me. Demon Wings Squad 1. After completing the mission in Shurangxi, Ma Jin formed it. Zhong Yunshin, Haion Wenchang, Chong Mayong, and Beck Miyo were grouped together. It was a reorganization of Demon Wings by group. He said it was to make it easier to coordinate. Does our group not need to rest? They're all like you. Either they love gaining merits or enjoy wandering the martial world. It seemed like the former referred to Yunshin and Miyo, while the latter referred to Wenchang and Mayong. I understand. Then, I'll take my leave. Rest. Leaving Ma Jin, who was completing the arrangements, behind, he exited the office. As he descended outside, a crimson shadow was cast across the sky. Instead of heading to the training hall, he made his way to his room. Yunshin immediately lay down on the bed. The sound of bustling activity was ringing. It seemed seniors in other rooms were having a drinking session. From farther away, he sensed the clashes in the training hall. The singing of swords, the grand shouts, the laughter washing away fatigue, the clinking of cups. Sunlight smeared on the paper door swept beside his face. It was the touch of the sunset hanging at the end of the day. His crown felt hot. It was always like this around this time. Since when was it? The upper dantian invited the energy of nature to dance within him. The more he played, the larger his house became. Regardless of the owner's will. It was when the boundary between day and night blurred. The laughter of seniors enjoying drinks and songs grew louder. It seemed they were having fun. Suddenly, he imagined shouting loudly for them to stop. Yunshin closed his eyes. In his darkened vision, blue clothes shimmered. It was like being doused with cold water. In an instant, all senses in his body returned to reality. No one was watching now. He curled up in bed. Once more. Before him lay the final mission of the Azure Dragon Squad. The wind sweeping across his cheeks was fierce. It was because he was galloping on a horse. Yunshin glanced around from atop the fine steed. This proves the magnitude of this task. 8 others were riding alongside him. It was a number he had never experienced in a mission before. A formidable company. There were 9 experts of demon wings from the desolate fortress. Whether it's a guest house or a tavern, we'll rest there. Entering the marketplace, Ma Jin's voice echoed as if imbued with a thread of chi. The pedestrians, who had been running with anxious faces, brightened upon seeing the warriors of the desolate fortress. The desolate fortress was not merely a sect that stayed in a desolate state. It was said to have won the hearts of the people more than most inspectors. They broke the swords of the martial artists who threatened them. The party stopped in front of a tavern. It looked quite large but appeared roughly constructed. However, it was the best building in the vicinity. Hyon Wenchang, who dismounted from his horse, looked around. Is this Xinyi County? It's different from what I heard. To pass through Hanam from the desolate fortress, they had to go through Xinyi County. They had already passed the site where the Zhong family's estate once stood. It was completely in ruins. It seemed stealthy demon's words were true. Not a single tree was visible on the mountain behind it. He said they burned it all down. Baek Myo glanced at Yunshin's expressionless face. She soon began fiddling with her long, white fingers and spoke. With the old guard gone, it's only natural that the black factions would run rampant. The back alley thugs are probably managing it all. It was then. With the Zhong family gone, it's like heaven. The leader was astonished. The income from the forests they monopolized is just. The Blood Flame sect did us a favor. I thought I'd have to resort to gambling if I got kicked out of the organization. A coward like you learning blood arts? What a joke! Rowdy voices were echoing outside. It was the largest tavern in Xinyi County. The identity of the gathered people was obvious. The fact that they casually discussed joining the Blood Flame sect showed they lived without fear. Yunshin's brow furrowed. Income from the forests. He recalled the day he left to join the desolate fortress. The chief steward had said he would manage it. It was not money meant to fall into the hands of the black faction. Let's go in. While Chong Myong entrusted the horses to the stable boy, Yunshin took the lead. Even the experts of Demon Wings 2 group, being his seniors, followed his lead. They were good people. As they parted the fluttering curtains and entered, the noise momentarily ceased. Contrary to its appearance, the interior was quite spacious. There was a bald man with an axe, a man performing tricks with a dagger, and another with an open shirt. Men of various appearances, each accompanied by a courtesan, were laughing slyly. They seemed to be warriors of the black faction, but none of them looked familiar. It was as if they had all come from other regions. Yunshin took a step forward and spoke calmly. You all. Explain about the Zhong family's land. What? One of them sneered. Just as he was about to say something about kids, it happened. Hyon Wenchang suddenly stepped forward and flipped the hem of Yunshin's robe over his shoulder. The skill surpassed that of most joint locks. Yunshin understood now. It was the way seniors who had ventured into the martial world skipped over nuisances. Upon seeing the character for the Desolate, the lips of the man who was about to speak froze as if they had turned to stone. The crowd began to murmur. "Speak," Yunshin said without concern. Chapter 38, Amongst Debt of Gratitude, 2. The martial artists whispered among themselves. The Desolate. Desolate Fortress. That can't be. Why would the Desolate Fortress come here? The eminent monks of Shaolin were with the magistrate bastard. There's no way the Desolate Fortress wouldn't show up. They truly displayed the chaos of the black factions. When the back alley ruffians learned low-level martial arts and became martial artists, they were called the Black Faction. They were those who failed to become proper martial artists. It was then that a hefty, bald brute pulled the axe he had stuck into the table. The man seemed to have learned martial arts befitting his natural strength. His eyes, bloodshot with drunkenness, glared at Yunshin. This brat is an expert from the Desolate Fortress? These guys are brothers. The man gripped the axe handle and suddenly hurled it. The sound of the air being torn was intense. Wanchang remained motionless with his arms crossed. He even smiled. Boom! Yunshin drew his sword in the blink of an eye and deflected it away. The axe shattered into pieces instantly. The sudden surge of power in his hand gripping the Desolate sword created a gust of wind. Some fragments of the axe scattered in the air, channeling the power of a fist into a sword strike. Wanchang, who was smiling nonchalantly nearby, exclaimed in admiration. He seemed to have recognized it as the point-blank blast of the second tier of the Eternal Blossom Fist. Perhaps it was because Yunshin created and used his own martial arts. He had easily reached the stage where he could freely infuse different energies into his attacks. The Desolate Fortress, 9 great sects, and 13 heavens are like clouds above. At that moment, he realized that his martial arts belonged to a different world than the average local martial artists. Compared to the fierce Azura sword of the Tyrant Sword sect, it felt as trivial as a fly. He didn't even need to use the Fatebreaker's Codex to stack chi. The axe throw felt incredibly light. Was throwing axes your way of starting a conversation? As he stepped forward with his sword lowered, the members of the Black Faction were terrified. Yunshin paid no mind and approached confidently. Even if he left the others alone, he couldn't leave the hefty bald man. The throw was clearly an attempt to kill. How lightly he had used his hands until now, it was as natural as flowing water. It was different from the Mantis sect, which had to face Yunshin within its own martial arts sect. There would have been more than a few commoners who had been victimized. Wait, let's talk. The man seemed to have lost the will to resist after witnessing the power of the point-blank blast. At the same time, the Desolate sword flashed. The white light spreading from the long blade illuminated the man's despairing face. Shush dash. The splattered blood shone vividly, as if urging for an answer. The remaining men's complexions changed. After the Zhong family's annihilation, rumors spread of a bloody wind blowing through the marketplace. There had been a war among the black factions over the local market. He heard the story. The chief steward of the Zhong family had formed a merchant group amidst the chaos and grew it with incredible skill. Their main trade was in agricultural products, and their skill in negotiation and distribution was such that they quickly expanded beyond Shinya County. However, the estate's forests and assets were the foundation of the merchant group. The Black Faction martial artists wouldn't leave it alone. They said they blinded the magistrate with great wealth, then attacked and dismantled the merchant group. A sect called Shinya Bikmu Faction was thus formed. Rotten bastards! Wanchang was furious. The courtesans who had been with the martial artists of the Shinya Bikmu Faction quietly returned to the brothel. They didn't even scream. It seemed they were accustomed to blood. It was unclear what the magistrate was doing. I believe you can handle it well. A day should suffice, right? Considering it's the land of your family. If you ask, I can help. It was a trivial matter for the experts of Demon Wings. The seniors patted Yunshin, the youngest, on the head or shoulders and headed to the guest rooms. With his calm nature and stable martial prowess, Lightning Flash had already gained trust within Demon Wings through just 2 missions. Can I punish the magistrate? It's possible once you become a black robe. Yunshin's question was answered by Ma Jin. He continued speaking. You've already annihilated the Mantis sect alone. You are clearly stronger than back then. A local black faction like the one in Shinya County shouldn't be difficult. Do you need any more help? I appreciate the offer, but no, thank you. I'll investigate this magistrate thoroughly upon my return. Much seems likely to surface. With words of gratitude, Yunshin bowed. As he turned, Wanchang was smiling brightly. I'll go with you. Sending a young master like Zhong on a righteous journey alone? The name Lightning Flash would be insulted. It's not a righteous journey, though. How is sweeping away a black faction sect not a task for a hero? Others fear even a scratch and won't do it. Should I add your name to the Zhong family's fish scale map? The fish scale map was a detailed land registry. It was a joke suggesting they might give him a piece of land, but Wanchang shook his head seriously. The true hero doesn't accept rewards. He seemed like an unreliable figure in the desolate fortress. Recently, Yunshin often thought this. Wasn't Wanchang truly a great hero worthy of being in stories? He was also a handsome man with a hearty impression. The hero's headband on his forehead suited him perfectly. It just doesn't feel real yet. The two headed straight for the Xinye Bigmu faction. It was not far away. They arrived without needing to use the desolate fortress's martial arts techniques. It seemed like they were using a small manor of a local power as it was, with an antique front gate firmly closed. It's almost a shame to cut it down. Contrary to his words, Haiyan Wanchang had already drawn his desolate sword. With a single step of his footwork, he spun like a northern wind. The refined force on his sword's edge rang sharply, and as the rotational strike severed the gate, Yunshin stomped the ground. Crack dash! Wooden fragments scattered in the wind enveloping Yunshin's body. Through the now open view, martial artists armed with various weapons came into sight. They were already prepared. It was said that it was the larger sects that hesitated to clash with the desolate fortress. Smaller sects were often ignorant of the news and did not easily sense rumors. They lacked the ability to know their enemies. It reminded him of Chong Myong's comment about how the term ignorant applied to such people. The Xinye Bigmu faction. Their attitude was truly arrogant. Only two ignorant fools came. I'll make fertilizer out of you as well. A man with an arrogant expression and imposing stature emerged. He seemed to be the leader, the master of the Xinye Bigmu faction. What are you waiting for? Kill them. Yunshin didn't stop his charge. With a hazy beam of light, the radiant sword style brushed past the master's neck. He had just broken the dantians of the underlings and collected documents related to the Zhong family. For people crossed the threshold of the Xinye Bigmu faction. Their eyes scanned the surroundings, filled with shock and amazement. It seemed due to the many black faction martial artists lying groaning on the ground. Oh, it's too late already. What on earth is this? Two monks, an older middle-aged man, and the magistrate of Xinye County dressed in official robes. It seemed they had heard rumors from the tavern and came. Aren't you a child of the Zhong family? The chubby-faced magistrate recognized Yunshin. Even without frequent interactions, they knew each other's faces. The martial sects and the magistrates were not separate entities. It was common for the martial sects to aid in maintaining order when manpower was lacking. Likewise, the magistrate often provided convenience in tribute and business, forming a symbiotic relationship. The desolate fortress? Is that you? Young master? Leaving the stammering magistrate behind, a person rushed to stand before him. You've truly become a martial artist of the desolate fortress. Wearing a blue robe, indeed. It's like a dream. The middle-aged man's face brightened, the chief steward of the Zhong family. It seemed the rumors of Lightning Flash's exploits in Shaanxi hadn't yet reached Hanam. I heard you were not doing well, Chief Steward. I lacked strength. The chief steward gave a wry smile. Yunshin narrowed his eyes. The aura approaching was different than before. It was quite clear and weighty. It was a change unlikely without studying proper orthodox martial arts. Did you join an orthodox sect? Yes. At my age, I became a secular disciple of the Shaolin monastery. Fortune favored me. I am truly grateful. It was indeed a surprising event. Expressing their ups and downs from losing the merchant group to becoming a Shaolin disciple in words would take a long time. The expression on his face revealing complex emotions was enough. The chief steward seemed to have sought the help of Shaolin to eradicate the black faction in Xinye. During the catastrophe that annihilated the Zhong family, he felt his extraordinary nature. Such an exceptional man was rotting in the Zhong family. He introduced the old monk standing quietly beside him. This is my master. I am one Zhong. The old monk in yellow robes raised his right hand in front of his chest. It was called a half bow, a unique Shaolin gesture. His face, staring intently at Yunshin, was weathered with time. So, you are Venerable One Zhong. I am Zhong Yunshin of the Desolate Fortress. When Yunshin made a fist salute, a voice interrupted. The young hero's skills are truly remarkable. I am Gak Zhong. A young martial monk who had been looking around approached. He was very handsome. His neat head and generous, long ears were impressive. A martial monk of Shailin's famous elven race. Before speaking with them, discerning their status was difficult, but it was clear he wasn't of elder-level age. Little divine monk Gak Zhong. His name was already well known. He was said to be one of the 18 arhats of the Shaolin monastery and a master of Shaolin martial arts. He wasn't an ordinary prodigy. Master. May I speak with this person? As you wish. But before that. Venerable One Zhong, with his weary eyes, looked directly at Yunshin. Do you have any connection with our monastery? It is my first time meeting Shaolin experts. However, your body is quite remarkable. It's as if you have mastered the I Ching Sutra. The I Ching Sutra. It was a martial art known to all martial artists. Its origin was widely recognized. It was said that the great master Da Mo created it to cultivate the bodies and internal energy of monks. The 72 arts of Shaolin were said to begin and end with the I Ching Sutra. The chief steward, as well as Gak Zhong, widened their eyes. Come to think of it. The words of Gak Zhong, who was examining Yunshin's physique, trailed off. The chief steward just stood quietly, filled with admiration. Even though he knew Yunshin had been cultivating his body for nearly 10 years by creating Zhong family dynamic training, he was still amazed. Though he had become a secular disciple of Shaolin, he didn't speak carelessly. Young hero Zhong. I don't think you have stolen and learned our temple's secret arts. That's impossible. Gak Zhong spoke up. However, I have a good idea. I understand that your skills are quite reasonable from a secular point of view. But from the perspective of someone who has only honed martial arts and the Buddha's way in the mountain temple, it seems a bit excessive. Since it's certain you'll become one of the top masters in the world, this humble monk cannot help but be concerned. What are you trying to say? A martial artist speaks with martial prowess. I have mastered the Iron Palm, I Ching Sutra, and some of the 72 arts' external techniques. Although I Ching Sutra includes internal techniques, you seem to have cultivated your body with a dynamic art. How about granting the victor's request by competing with physical achievements? If you accept, I will give you this. Gak Zhong took out a small wooden box from his robe and opened it. A pungent herbal scent wafted out, revealing a small pill. It's the Bright Pure Pill. I have made it by transmitting my clan's secret art to our temple's Medicine King Hall. The Bright Pure Pill. Wan Chang, who had been watching nonchalantly, was suddenly startled. He had just come out from the pavilion after searching for wealth to distribute to the commoners. While the renown of the Great Elixir and Lesser Elixir encompassed the world, recently, medicines like the Bright Pure Pill from Shaolin were gaining a reputation. It was said to rapidly heal injured meridians. It was due to the fusion of Shailin's Medicine King Hall's medical skills and the elven secret techniques. I've heard it's quite a precious medicine. Even if one suffered internal injuries, they could immediately fight again. Perhaps this was Shailin's fair-mindedness. Their cautious offer of medicine first, despite wanting to guide him, was impressive. It would be a rare thing in other martial sects. Yunshin stared quietly into Gak Zhong's clear eyes and nodded. As he accepted the wooden box, Gak Zhong grinned. I'll try my best. Ha ha. Thank you for accepting my meddling. And you never know, young hero. You might need to take that medicine immediately. It was an interesting challenge. He was implying that Yunshin might suffer internal injuries while competing with him. Considering the formidable Shaolin martial arts and the little divine monk's fame, it was quite plausible. What is your request, master? If I win, listen to my Buddhist lecture for 1 shichen. What? Did you think I'd ask you to shave your head and join the main temple? Gak Zhong, who was loosening his limbs, seemed like an intriguing person to Yunshin. The mix of a martial artist's competitive spirit and a Buddhist disciple's transcendence seemed to create a peculiar personality. It wasn't a bad feeling. Let's begin. Good. As he took his stance, Yunshin instinctively knew. If they used internal energy, he would still be far behind the little divine monk Gak Jong. However, the degree of physical training was different. He had achieved greatness by training solely with Jong family dynamic training for a long time. He thought it was worth a try. Smack! As soon as the martial competition began, dazzling fists and kicks poured in. Fists and legs traced all sorts of trajectories, striking his entire body. Only his eyes moved as he wished. He absorbed the essence of the Shaolin fist and kick techniques one by one. Parak! Thud! The fist that struck his shoulder wasn't light. Without any chi, powerful martial arts flowed from Gak Jong's body. For 20 exchanges, Yunshin didn't make a single effective counterattack. It was then. Suddenly, Gak Jong's robes flapped with discipline. It was only for a moment. With 2 steps of the point-blank blast, he suddenly charged at a forward angle. It seemed to be the Dragon Fist, one of the 5 Shaolin fists. Thwack dash! The rising fist erupted from his solar plexus. Was it a technique that embodied a dragon's ascent within a human body? Even without any internal energy, a cloud of dust rose. It was as if he had intended to kill him. Instead, Gak Jong was pushed back 2 steps. The footprints imprinted on the dirt floor were deep. Yunshin stood quietly with a serene face. He remained in the exact spot where he had been standing when the martial competition began. "Have you finished, Master?" he asked quietly. Chapter 39, A Monk's Debt of Gratitude, 3. The Shaolin martial art style had a grandeur and discipline that seemed to even contain the power of spirits. At first glance, it seemed simple, but that was not the case. The intricacies involved in its striking techniques were profound and complex. However, Yunshin had seen enough of Gak Jong's hand and leg techniques. Yunshin didn't wait for an answer. He twisted from his heel. Simultaneously, he felt a flow from his waist to his right arm. It was free and powerful. Whoosh! Though it appeared simple, it generated immense force with minimal movement. He instinctively demonstrated the profound principle of moving 1,000 pounds with just 4 ounces. Originally, this principle was about countering a powerful blow with minimal force. However, now it was different. With a short step forward, he launched a powerful right punch. Thud! Gak Jong's body wavered as Yunshin's punch struck his side. His eyes widened in shock. Even Yunshin, who delivered the punch, felt its considerable weight. For Gak Jong, it would have been strange not to feel the force. The brawl commenced. Complex trajectories and afterimages of hands and feet entangled. During the exchange, Yunshin took more hits. From the start, his experience and martial arts depth couldn't compare. Yet it was enjoyable. The techniques executed without the aid of the demon's light felt utterly fresh. Meanwhile, the impact of his opponent's fists and feet didn't penetrate deeply. There was no pain, only the pleasure of hitting. His body had already surpassed even that of a little divine monk. Swish and thud. Yunshin feigned a move with the broad left sleeve of his robe. Simultaneously, his right fist crushed the fabric of Gak Jong's shoulder. The rough texture of the monk's robe was deeply felt. Each time Yunshin's single strike landed, Gak Jong staggered. A distant elderly voice was heard. Did he take the forms and styles of the 5 Shaolin fists? No, that's not it. The principle is the same, but it's even higher. The range of application in martial arts and force has increased. How is that possible? It's like he's creating a new martial art. Wan Cheng glanced at the constantly muttering monk Wan Zhong beside him. Not all the high-ranking monks of Shaolin were renowned. Besides the martial monks, there were many other monks. These included the Mu-Du monks, who studied martial theory, and the Hak monks, who devoted themselves to Buddhist practice. Monk Wan Zhong was different from little divine monk Gak Jong. It was a Dharma name he had never heard before. When you dedicate yourself to a field in the mountains, I suppose you can end up like that. Don't you think? HM? Wan Chang sidled up to Ji Hyon, trying to be friendly. Ji Hyon, from Shinya County, shook his head and couldn't hide his awkward expression, but Hyon Wan Chang didn't mind. Those who know about Master Zhong's body. Even in demon wings, he's considered a supernatural strength. Once, when Master Zhong was bathing, the maidens who tended to the pavilion fetched water and then snuck back to watch him. Anyway, they were quite bold, being people from Desolate Fortress. And then what happened? Why do you ask? I'm not really curious. Hey, others listened with great interest. While they conversed, a decision was reached. Gak Jong and Yunshin stepped back simultaneously, as if they were reflections of each other. If we continue, we'll end up using the bright pure pill. Either one of us. I have learned a great deal. I shall listen to the monk's teachings. Yunshin's calm words made Gak Jong laugh heartily. You have a truly pure nature. If only I had a disciple like you under me. But in reality, they're all so arrogant, they don't heed either martial arts or Buddhism. Anyway, I couldn't defeat you. To be honest. Gak Jong, who was like a guardian god of Indian Buddhism, had a strangely stiff smile. He continued to speak slowly. I was afraid. Your techniques were gradually taking effect, and it seemed like they'd soon be destroyed one by one. This is my defeat as well, but if you'll listen to my teachings, I, too, will someday fulfill your request. Sounds good. Yunshin nodded readily. He gained 3 things today, all significant. Experiencing the hand and leg techniques of Shaolin firsthand would greatly enhance his martial arts. The famous and peculiar bright pure pill could save his life once. Having the right to ask a favor from little divine monk in the martial world was also a great asset. Shinya Bikmu faction. Our connection continues like this. Feeling the mysteries of the martial world, Yunshin moved together with monk Gak Jong. Beyond the twilight's faint light, the moon rose white. It seemed he wouldn't return to the guest room tonight. He gestured toward the henchmen of the black faction, who were looking at them with overwhelmed eyes. They decided to listen to the teachings and rest in the quickly tided pavilion. Ji Hyon from Shinya County fled in shock. The wealth he received from Shinya Bikmu faction seemed considerable. Yunshin hoped Ma Jin would handle it appropriately. The first patriarch of Chinese Zen Buddhism, the first patriarch of Da Mo, said. With Gak Jong's Buddhist lecture, the day ended. It was an anecdote about how Da Mo told Weaker that an uneasy mind has no substance. At a young age, the harsh battles Yunshin had experienced sharpened his mind like a blade. On the other hand, his dulled heart towards others' lives, combined with his terminal illness, emitted a murderous aura. It was said that Zen Buddhism transmits its teachings orally. Yunshin's anxiety didn't disappear immediately with a single lecture. However, he was able to learn the principles that permeated through the martial arts of Buddhism. It was a new world. For a moment, a sky-blue light flickered in Yunshin's eyes. During that time, Monk Wan Zhong continued to gaze at him from one side of the bed. At the time when dawn seemed more like twilight, everyone rose. They shared breakfast while watching the verbal sparring between Wan Zhong and Gak Jong. Yunshin and Wan Chang silently listened to the argument between the two monks as they moved their spoons. It seemed like a regular occurrence, but the chief steward looked pale as if he couldn't breathe. The phrase of vanquishing evil and preserving the truth isn't just an abstract part of the doctrine. It's a real force. The ability to eradicate the power accumulated by vile groups like the Blood Flame sect. Sorcery and martial arts were originally one. The unfathomable skills of the sages were divided into 2 and named so. You're creating martial arts to kill the leader of the Blood Flame sect. And you're a person who has taken refuge in the Dharma. Gak Jong leaned over and whispered to Yunshin, as if wanting him to hear. Even Yunshin himself didn't know when they had become so close. It doesn't seem like something you should reveal about the sect. Their behavior, like that of a grandfather and grandson, was rather childish. It shattered any vague notions about Shaolin. How is that wrong? It's something that must be done for all living beings in the world. Indeed. If there's an opportunity, you must open the path to life. But your mentor is dedicating his life to killing people. That's a life without hell. How can you not consider the feelings of the disciples and followers? My torment cannot be resolved through penance. I realized this after facing the wall for over 10 years. The leader of the Blood Flame sect must die for me to live. Yunshin was slightly surprised. Facing the wall was a renowned form of training. It was a practice of meditation by staring at a wall. It originated from the tale that Da Mo sat facing a wall for 9 years and attained enlightenment. Did the Blood Flame sect massacre his family? Like mine. But Gak Jong seemed indifferent. He spoke as if he had heard the same words dozens of times. From the beginning, our sect's great wisdom and great power were sufficient to counter blood techniques. Shaolin martial arts have always been strong against blood techniques. There is no more extreme antagonism. Isn't the leader of the Blood Flame sect still alive? Because that's not enough. What you're seeking is the creation of an entirely new system. It's something that would take 100 years to achieve. The martial arts and Dharma techniques were originally won in Shaolin martial arts. I've told you this many times. If we had the lost Avalokitesvara's green steel hand, we could crush the skulls of those sect demons. Please mind your words. And how could you replace the burnt-out martial arts with secret techniques? No, never mind. It wasn't until Gak Jong shook his head that the meal ended. The 5 people stood up amidst the awkward atmosphere. Only Yunshin's expression remained peculiar. Avalokitesvara's green steel hand. From what I heard, it seemed to possess tremendous power against the Blood Flame sect. A martial art imbued with the Dharma power of Buddha. It piqued my interest. I also learned that martial arts had polar opposites. There existed fundamental differences in nature, distinct from countering techniques. A martial art specialized in one aspect. How fascinating! There were many strong individuals, including those in blue and black uniforms. For Yunshin, whose martial arts level was still lacking, it was a new clue. Just knowing that such a thing existed could help create something. The principles contained in the forms and styles of Shaolin martial arts. The ideas that penetrated the Zen Buddhism of Shaolin. Understanding the forms and the intent that infused qi into the techniques was tantamount to giving everything to Yunshin. At that moment, I wondered why you didn't return by morning. I knew you wouldn't fall to the likes of the Black Faction. Ma Jin approached with astonishing agility. Behind him, the Masters of Demon Wings crossed the front gate of Shinya Bikmu faction. Glancing over Wan Zhong, Gak Zhong, and the chief steward, Ma Jin spoke again. The Shaolin monks are here. We have no time for greetings, as we are surrounded. Did you say surrounded? Yunshin asked. It's the Blood Flame sect. The information leaked. It seems the Hao clan has indeed betrayed us, but we must survive first. His tone wasn't leisurely. There was tension. It was hard to believe this was someone from the Black Faction of Desolate Fortress speaking. Yunshin glanced around. He realized they were now facing the true force of the Blood Flame sect. At some point, the sounds of birds in the surrounding forest ceased. Suddenly, there was a chill in the air. It felt like something was crawling along his cheek. The sound that brushed past his ear was eerie. The encirclement of martial factions was said to be extensive in area. There was even a saying about the web spread across heaven and earth. We will break through the main gate, Ma Jin said. He was already holding a massive broadsword. The warriors of Demon Wings drew their weapons. Yunshin felt it. Even the masters who didn't make a sound of drawing their swords were tense. Chong Myong and Baek Myo stood close to him. Hyon Wenchang was with them too. If you get separated from the group, meet at the Desolate Ma family. It's a martial family in Pyongjeong Mountain. They also serve as the Henan branch of Desolate Fortress. If you survive, you'll receive a warm welcome. Was that a joke? Before people could chuckle at Chong Myong's offhand remark. With a crash, a section of the wall shattered. A presence walked forward with clear footsteps, as if it were a doorway through anything in its path. Step. It was an eerily beautiful woman. Black hair and red eyes. It was an unfamiliar appearance. Hello. Her speech was casual and light. Her hair fluttered in the breeze, pitch black. It wasn't just dark. Like the black cloak she wore, it felt darker than the night sky. In contrast, her lips were so red they seemed to be constantly stained with blood. They stood out starkly against her white skin. The aura she wore around her entire body was unsettling. Even the fluttering hem of her cloak seemed eerie. That's her. Yunshin knew the moment he saw her. In the Blood Flame sect, as a martial artist's skills increased, their red hair turned black. Her hair was truly jet black. She was an apostle of the Blood Flame sect. If it was a woman, she would be the 7th apostle. She was already known for her powerful martial prowess and ruthless nature. 7th apostle. Ma Jin's voice was like a growl drawn from deep within his abdomen. How foolish. To not even realize you were ambushed. Her voice was melodious. The 7th apostle of the Blood Flame sect walked forward with a bright red smile. Her light steps carried an alluring grace and a terrifying aura. There was an atmosphere reminiscent of a quagmire. It was a world apart from the Blood Masters. Your lightning flash, the future of desolate fortress. She stopped 10 paces ahead, her gaze fixed on Yunshin. Her eyes were like polished jade stained with blood. The deep red pupils seemed to carry interest. She smiled. Your neck is quite beautiful. Look at me, seventh apostle. The seventh apostle glanced indifferently at Ma Jin, who had taken a step forward. With a flick of her long fingers, the members of the Blood Flame sect appeared from all directions. Yunshin felt his vision turn red. There were easily 100 red heads, and he could see 20 Blood Masters. Here. The seventh apostle moved her lips. I will kill the future and present of Demon Wings. Simultaneously, her hand blurred. While Demon Wings and Shaolin Masters were assessing the enemy's strength. With a sinister aura, she charged like a blood-red lightning bolt. A crimson dagger flashed as it seemed to pierce through Yunshin's forehead. Slash! Yunshin twisted his body, catching it. His body seemed to instinctively react to the sinister force before he even realized it. The shockwave from the attack was so immense that he took a step back. The energy lingering in his grip felt unfamiliar. It dissipated the chi of blood techniques infused in the dagger. It was as if Gak Zhong's lecture echoed in his ears all night. May the 3 poisons be eternally vanquished, and the 6 senses always be purified. The meaning of the Buddhist scriptures and the forms of Shaolin martial arts were converging into a kind of mantra. Could it be that Damo also created it this way? At this moment, an incomplete martial art sprouted. The masters of Demon Wings turned their heads in surprise. Occasionally shining with blue light, Yunshin's eyes had subtly turned blue. The apostle uses the martial arts of the Blood Flame sect too. Yunshin spoke. The seventh apostle laughed as if she found it amusing. Watching her quietly, Yunshin slowly opened his mouth again. Your martial arts are easy to handle, he said, his eyes flashing with a blue light. Chapter 40, Heavenly Martial Arts. Martial arts powered by Dharma. Truly. Wan Zhong exclaimed in shock as he looked at Yunshin. His wrinkled eyes trembled as if he were utterly surprised. In contrast, the seventh apostle seemed more relaxed. Easy to handle, you say? It seems like Shaolin-level martial arts, but it's only somewhat strong against blood arts. It's not enough to surpass my skills. You're still far below me, quite adorable. The seventh apostle smirked, her figure seemingly disappearing as she split apart. The fiery aura she unleashed was enormous. This time, even Yunshin couldn't react. Boom! Ma Jin stepped in to block. The collision of the 2 top experts distorted the air. A formidable force emanated from Ma Jin's advancing body. The massive sword of the Demon Wing seemed to have enough power to push away the seventh apostle's hand. She narrowed her eyes. Demon Wing's leader. So you had high hopes for the youngster named Lightning Flash. Shut up. Attack. At the seventh apostle's brief utterance, the members of the Blood Flame sect responded. It was an invitation to chaos. They surrounded them with their banners, converging from all sides. The sheer number of them created a feeling of being in the middle of a battlefield. Blood-red heads were visible from all directions. The sharpness of various weapons echoed from all around. Yunshin saw their eyes, wide with madness. Every one of them had something beyond human in their crimson pupils. Monsters similar to the ones he had seen at the Zhong family estate were everywhere. He tightened his grip on his sword. Clang! He swung upward, completely shattering one opponent's sword. Stepping forward, he cut through to the neck. The sensation of striking bone lasted only a moment. The smoothly shattered trajectory entered the realm of ascending sword techniques. The desolate sword in his hand began to trace its path, emitting a faint light. Radiance. Beams of light flowed like waves, each one a sword strike. The radiant sword style he developed at Mount Zhongnan had an uninterrupted flow. It was different from when he only used the swift sword technique. Without exerting much force, he leaped over 3 swords and severed 5 necks. Seal his hands. Pierce his throat. The Blood Flame sect members were out of their minds. They attacked with methods he couldn't have imagined. Throwing themselves was commonplace. They seemed intent on exploiting every weak point, even attempting to grab and cling onto him. Some even tossed coins like hidden weapons. All of them were infused with chi, requiring deflection or evasion. Yunshin stepped on the splendid wing step, brushing past a crescent-shaped arc. Lightning flash. This way! Baek Myo's shout was drowned out by the force of the Bloodmaster's sword attacks. There were more than a few of them. At their level, there were more than 20 who reigned as kings. The leader is tied up with the seventh apostle, and there are more Bloodmasters than blue uniforms. He grasped the situation through the lens of group combat. Chong Myong and Baek Myo were said to be among the best of the blue uniform. The other blues also faced the Bloodmasters without retreating. What needed concern was Yunshin himself. With his left hand, he operated the mnemonic of the Eternal Blossom Fist. He unleashed the energy with a fist. Simultaneously, the atmosphere twisted. The second phase point-blank blast shattered both the arc and the enemy's head. Thud! Perhaps it was just before he turned into a Bloodmaster. The force bouncing back from his fist was substantial. Even so, it was a single blow. The nearby Demon Wing Senior watched in astonishment. It's still not enough. Overcoming the situation was impossible. He lacked the power to lead in the realm of the top masters. Such tasks were the responsibility of the desolate Fortress Black faction. Unless Ma Jin killed the seventh apostle, it wasn't a situation that could be easily resolved. Slash! With a swift sword-style radiant sword, he severed another neck in an instant. The enemy fell without sensing the sword strike. Simultaneously, Yunshin delved inward. The martial arts technique that had arisen when he grasped the seventh apostle's dagger sank again. He couldn't summon it at will. It seemed to be because the mnemonic hadn't fully materialized. Harp! An aged, hoarse voice cried out. It was close to Yunshin's left. When he turned his gaze, he saw Monk One Jong unleashing a palm technique with a shout. He didn't feel a particularly strong aura. They called him a Mu-Du monk. They were monks who studied the principles and mnemonics of martial arts. It was said that Shailin's strength came from them. However, in the martial world, they didn't achieve the fame of the martial monks, so they rarely made a name for themselves. Then, aren't you dealing with even one? Kill the old monk first. Two Bloodmasters approached Monk One Jong. Attacking a monk was taboo throughout the ages. However, they showed no hesitation in their actions. The doctrine of the Blood Flame sect freed them from worldly conventions. That was why they were part of the demonic sects. Yunshin swept his surroundings with all his senses. He had somehow drifted far from the demon wings. Did he have omnidirectional perception? Manipulating the distance in the chaos of Masters' battles was a different matter. At this moment, he was the only one who could help One Jong. He pushed off the ground. The wind he created brushed against his eyes. The figures of the grinning enemies rapidly grew larger. A dim light rose at the edge of his vision. It was the precursor of the radiant sword style imbued in the desolate sword. He cleaved through the strong wind that brushed over the back of his hand. Slice! The radiant sword struck the enemy's forehead as they turned to look. They fell instantly dead. The sword strike didn't stop. He turned his body and clashed with the one who had already prepared. Clang! What kind of swordsmanship? A look of dismay appeared in the eyes of the Bloodmaster. Yunshin wasn't at ease. The fact that the enemy was speaking indicated they still had energy. The Blood Flame sect believed in their numbers. As a demonic sect, they spread even further. It was paradoxical. Monk! To the north! Yunshin finally made a decision. Ma Jin had mentioned the desolate Ma family before the ambush. If they anticipated such a dispersal, it was something to include as an option. Following the demon's light martial arts, he kicked the back of the Bloodmaster's knee. It was a kick amplified by true chi from the Fatebreaker's codex. With a thud, the enemy collapsed. He beheaded them and passed through. Slash! Monk One Jong, who had been hidden behind the enemy's body, appeared. His eyes were wide open. I had a feeling you weren't ordinary when you faced Gak Jong. How do you possess such martial arts at your age? It's meaningless. Let's move. The battlefield kept expanding. It was because the Demon Wings and Shaolin were strong. The Shinya Bikmu faction had long since left, and they had reached the point where they could touch the marketplace. Where are you going? Ask them. The Blood Flame sect seemed determined. 100 wasn't all of them. Seeing the endless stream of Blood Flame sect members, one wondered what the local soldiers were doing. He hadn't realized Shinya County had become so corrupt. At this point, it was a major battle in the martial world. Fortunately, the breakthrough path was good. It was because they had passed the tavern where Demon Wings had set up. They retrieved 2 fine horses and mounted them. He didn't worry about his companions. If I can escape, that means everyone can too. Among the Demon Wings masters who went on the mission, the only one weaker than Yunshin was Haiyan Wenchang. He wasn't greatly concerned about him either. Haiyan Wenchang was a master who led the killing sword over the demon's light. It meant he was skilled in killing. In a melee, it was a sword technique more effective than any martial art. This way. Wenchang followed behind Yunshin as he spurred his horse. Only the sound of galloping filled the distance. All the nearby residences had locked their doors and trembled in silence. Yunshin felt apologetic as he thought of his companions. Returning would only be a burden. The 7th apostle was still a master he couldn't handle. Avoiding the battlefield where he couldn't protect himself was the way to help. The old monk who had become a temporary companion seemed to understand. Riding alongside him, Monk Wenchang spoke. They don't seem to be following us. Even for a blood master, it's tough for their movement skill to outpace a horse. Besides, we killed 2 of them. With that, he fell silent, his mind seeming preoccupied. Yunshin didn't mind, and he recalled the geography of Hanam in his mind. The map of the Central Plains was a treasure only accessible to those ranked as captains of the desolate fortress or higher, but Ma Jin had familiarized him with it for the mission. We need to cross the river. The horses who soon reached the water's edge. They had completely left Shinya County behind. Let's take that. Do you mean that sightseeing boat? He hesitated to abandon the valuable horses, but fortunately, a leisurely cruise ship was passing by. It was a large flower boat with a canopy in the center. It was the season when young people enjoyed the spring air. Perhaps this was a common boat ride at this time. Because of the nearby incident, he couldn't feel at ease. Come here. Monk Wenchang spoke, infusing his words with inner energy. Yunshin muttered, "What did you say?" As a Mudu monk, he seemed to have devoted his life to Buddhist practice and martial arts mnemonics, with little experience of the world. For someone who had undergone years of wall-facing training, Monk Wenchang was quite eccentric. He might have held a high status before becoming a monk. The pleasure boat began to turn and approach. Yunshin's brows furrowed slightly. He saw 10 warriors standing guard. It was secondary to the young men and women who looked at them with strange smiles. In a world where swords were expensive, it wasn't easy to find warriors with the right disposition and martial skills to keep by one side. Are they the offspring of a prestigious family? They seemed to have properly learned martial arts. It reminded him of Jinyo, who had tried to assassinate him by getting close. The boat now seemed even larger as it approached. The wooden structure was luxurious and well-joined. No matter how you looked at it, it was extraordinary. The first to speak was not the noble young men holding wine cups. It seems the venerable monk needs a traveling companion. A young lady, appearing to be the daughter of a powerful family, stood and approached the boat's edge. She seemed about 18 years old. Her attire matched her striking beauty, and she appeared to be the center of the group. Yunshin wasn't concerned with her appearance. His gaze fell on the sword hanging at her waist. He sensed auras. She was a martial artist. What sect could she belong to? He spoke to the young lady. The monk was dedicated to his practice and neglected manners. Please forgive him. What is he talking about? Monk Wenchang turned abruptly, but she laughed aloud. I was a bit bored, so this is amusing. Would you like to board the boat? As you can see, it can easily hold a couple of horses. There was no significant aura. Yunshin bowed slightly and stepped onto the boat. He ignored Monk Wenchang, who glanced at him sidelong. Inside, it was even more luxurious than outside, to the point where it was hard to distinguish between being on a boat or in a banquet hall. Those seated exchanged glances. They were mostly young men around the young lady's age, not feeling the need to stand up and greet them. The seated young lady nodded her head slightly. This is the meeting of the successors of the Profound Martial Alliance. My fellow martial artists call me the Blossom of Sword Skill. The nickname a Blossom of Sword Skill, meaning a flower with swordsmanship skills, was of no importance. At this moment, Yunshin's martial world expanded. Profound Martial Alliance. It was another of the 13 heavens. It was said to be as powerful as the Tyrant Sword sect and the Blood Flame sect. This was a gathering of successors from demonic sect factions. It seems the profound martial alliance doesn't have a successor yet. None of them looked particularly strong. It could have been because Yunshin's standards had risen. These young men were also likely promising figures of the profound martial alliance. A noble young man sitting close to the blossom of sword skill leisurely propped his chin up. You seem like a martial artist from Desolate Fortress. What urgent business drives you to cross the river so quickly? There are Blood Flame sect members rampaging nearby. We were listening to the monk's teachings when we fled. Yunshin stated the facts and observed their reactions. He had said they were from the profound martial alliance. Although the 13 Heavens was not a single alliance, they often cooperated. There was a high possibility they already knew about the situation in Shinya County. As expected. They chuckled with peculiar expressions. The noble young man smiled. Desolate Fortress is wagging its tail at the 13 Heavens. Something interesting is happening. Laughter erupted from all around. This was not just a pleasure boat ride for the children of wealthy families. The elegant sneers filled the boat. Do you know? The blood-sucking ghosts worried about someone like you escaping. I didn't expect a Shaolin Mudu monk to be involved. It's the perfect place to silence someone. The blossom of sword skill laughed slightly. It seemed to be a remark comparing them to the water. It was hard to find bodies thrown into the river. The boat drifted farther from the shore. There was no turning back now. Amitabha. Monk One Jong quietly chanted the Buddha's name, and Yunshin silently grasped his sword hilt. Doesn't seem like you're afraid. Youngster. The blossom of sword skill muttered. She was already holding her sword. Should I spill some blood first? With a light remark, a surge of aura rose from her slender body. Her sword draw immediately followed, as if proving her nickname. The rising sword light aimed at an unexpected spot. A woman bringing food widened her eyes in shock. She seemed unrelated to the profound martial alliance. Such was the demonic sect. They treated human lives lightly. Seated opposite, Yunshin was already circulating Zhong family dynamic training. In one step, the wooden floor splintered. With his left hand, he gently pulled the woman's arm as he advanced. With anger rising like the river mist, he unleashed the desolate sword. The light of the radiant sword style dyed the mist white. The sword surged forward like lightning. Deflecting the blossom of sword skill's sword, it raced on, slashing her throat. Slash! He was stronger than he had thought. As he straightened his posture and looked away from the rolling head. Don't play tricks. Yunshin spoke quietly. The ones who had been reaching for their weapons flinched in shock. The sneers that had filled the cabin turned to fear and panic. The highest martial artist among them had been the blossom of sword skill. What kind of swordsmanship is this? The noble young man stammered. The others couldn't even open their mouths, now resembling henchmen of the demonic sect rather than scions of a prestigious family. Only their insight into recognizing the essence of swordsmanship differed. Being on the water with an enemy superior in rank. There was no greater terror in the martial world. Shishi is the treasured daughter of the Song family manor of the profound martial alliance. Aren't you afraid of the consequences? You should worry about the repercussions coming from the desolate fortress. You aimed for our necks. We'll head north for now. The decision will come later. You row. Having lost interest, he even sheathed his sword. Yunshin's face remained expressionless. The elite of the profound martial alliance must be elsewhere. Could they read his emotions on his face? The noble young man's face turned bright red. They called her the blossom of sword skill of the Song family manor. Don't you truly know her? We haven't exchanged names. He tapped his sword hilt. Demon wings, lightning flash. Chapter 41, Counter Martial Arts, 2. The stream leaving the lakeside rippled holding the sun. The Deep Martial Alliance Rising Talents boat continued forward without stopping. Only the owner had changed. Meanwhile, Zhong Yunshin heard Master One Zhong's story. It was a tale like wind streams meandering with the waves. I was about your age. I was immature. With a body like a piglet. Unlike you who already stands tall as a martial artist. Early spring wind blew. The old monk's voice seemed to seep into the trees lining the riverbank. My family's prestige was high. My father was in the Forbidden City Star. Until he was framed and exiled, that is. Thanks to the Emperor's mercy toward loyal subjects, we barely kept our lives. Even that was a miracle. Note: a Forbidden City refers to Imperial Palace in Beijing, China. Then, at the place of exile, the family became a martial family with broken ties. Yes, we were suitable targets for the Blood Flame sect coveting true energy. When I returned from playing general with peers, no one was alive. Rumor said the Blood Flame sect leader came personally. I wailed before my father's withered corpse. His voice was passionate. Hatred unfaded by long years could be felt. Fortunately caught my master's eye while begging for alms and climbed Mount Song, but even after becoming a monk my afflictions didn't settle. I knew my own lack of talent. That's why I thought differently. Creating counter martial arts. Master Wan Zhong nodded at Zhong Yanshin's murmur. Let's restore martial arts with Buddha's Dharma power imbued, martial arts solely for destroying the Blood Flame sect. And have fellow disciples learn it. The talented Shaolin warrior monks would truly welcome it. But there was affliction here too. Even if created, it was problematic. Wouldn't it be pushing fellow disciples to their deaths? Against the Blood Flame sect leader. Zhong Yanshin agreed. He had heard the Blood Flame sect leader had supernatural powers. Though they said the 13 heavens leaders were comparable to 9 sects leaders, in the vast world there were particularly powerful absolute beings. They said the Blood Flame sect leader, Shaolin Temple Abbot, and Desolate sect Divine Sword Squad leader were such people. The Demon Blade sect leader too was counted among the world's top in martial power. Even making such martial arts would be problematic. The Shaolin Abbot couldn't learn it personally and seek out the Blood Flame sect leader. Such was the weight of one leading an orthodox sect at the martial world's peak. If defeated, irreversible ripples would spread. That's how life is. No matter how hard you run, the end is rarely within grasp. You can only climb step by step. 16-year-old Zhong Yanshin spoke seriously. Master Wan Zhong, who had been staring at him blankly, turned his head again. Your enlightenment, having lived not even half my years, surpasses mine. My family too fell to the Blood Flame sect. The tyrant soured sect and its leader came together. You showed it. The martial arts I was only grasping the beginnings of. I won't ask how. They say a martial artist's secrets aren't to be pried into. Now I'm curious about only one thing. This time Zhong Yanshin turned his head to look at Master Wan Zhong's profile. The nameless river flowing into the Yellow River had no visible end. The old monk's figure gazing at the distant horizon seemed to speak of the life he had walked so far. He was a monk and martial artist who had held on to just one affliction in his life and couldn't let go. Master Wan Zhong spoke. Will you tell me how I can help? Just having martial arts that destroy evil and reveal righteousness emerge in the world would be enough. That achievement at that age. With your talent, you will surely reach the realm of supreme masters someday. Thank you for your words. Zhong Yanshin brightened. He had just been feeling lacking. With only little divine monk Gak Zhong's briefly learned Buddhism, it was hard to refine the chants. Originally martial arts chants also organize the nature of intent to be contained in true energy. Even Marketplace's 3 Disasters Sword Technique secret manual has phrases like when cutting horizontally, think of cutting heaven and earth. That's generally what martial artists called enlightenment in internal force work. It meant finding more appropriate intent than before in operating accumulated power. Though Zhong Yanshin could derive true energy operation methods from seeing most principles once, the power would inevitably be different when deeply delving into intent. He actively sat close to Master Wan Zhong. I believe you said it was the 10th chapter of the Diamond Sutra. Isn't there a passage in the chapter on the adornment of pure lands? There's a saying one should develop a mind that dwells nowhere, yet brings forth that mind. What? I'm requesting a Dharma talk. The splendid pleasure boat flowed along the river a long time. The Deep Martial Alliance rising talents didn't actually row. Zhong Yanshin gathered them to one side. This time he didn't close off their dantian. It was because civilians were involved. Killing Sword Art Flower was enough. There was already a high possibility that harm would come to the boatmen and women. Cleanse the 6 senses purely, making the mind dwell nowhere. Zhong Yanshin stood quietly. Except when listening to Master Wan Zhong's Dharma talk, he closed his eyes and sank into meditation. Just his silence instilled fear. Zhong Yanshin had taken the head of the locally famous Sword Art Flower in one strike. To the Deep Martial Alliance's young people, it seemed like the arrogance and confidence of one who would lead the next desolate sect. He heard whispers about talent mistakenly bestowed by heaven. Zhong Yunshin inwardly gave a bitter smile. It didn't come across as wrong words. "We'll get off here," he told the boatman. Zhong Yunshin glanced at Master Wan Zhong, who had disembarked first, and looked back. Perhaps they wanted to see them off. The lined-up Deep Martial Alliance rising talents hesitated. It was behavior Zhong Yunshin had never seen. Because the famous family teachings he knew didn't produce such crude ones. Not rising talents. It means best among juniors, but it's not a term that should be attached to just anyone. The Deep Martial Alliance was also a part of the 13 Heavens. He thought there must be separate rising talents. Someone like the Deep Martial Alliance leader's heir would be on a different level from these guys. Zhong Yunshin opened his mouth. "What are you doing? Trash wanting to stay with civilian people? Ridiculous thought. Get off. We're going to the righteous Heaven Sword family together. I'll leave your punishment to desolate sect. You're lucky. You won't die right away." Zhong Yunshin decided to make their arrest into merit. He wondered why he hadn't thought of it earlier. They had tried to kill a desolate sect martial artist, Shaolin monk, and innocent civilians. Along with their position as 13 Heavens members, it was enough to be recorded as merit. Zhong Yunshin tied their arms behind them with arrest ropes. What he had wasn't enough. He braided thick straw ropes on the spot. They were called gosak. It was a technique learned as a desolate sect warrior. When carrying out missions, there were also guys who needed to be brought back alive. While Master Wan Zhong watched with great satisfaction, Zhong Yunshin led the guys ahead and set out. As the official road gradually appeared, passers-by tilted their heads as they passed. There were guys who hesitated as if it was an unbearable humiliation. "Don't stop." He sharply revealed momentum, suggesting he would cut down escape attempts instantly. That was enough. The guys again moved, following Zhong Yunshin's casually thrown words. That's when it happened. "Aren't you the young masters of the Deep Martial Alliance?" It was an escort bureau procession. They said these were people who safely transported goods and people through the harsh central plains. The middle-aged man leading the front approached with a slight smile before stopping abruptly. He seemed to be the one responsible for the escort. The escort leader. He seemed familiar with the Deep Martial Alliance youngsters. These guys Zhong Yunshin had caught were enjoying boat rides nearby, supposedly in ambush. It wasn't strange that they were on familiar terms with people from nearby escort bureaus. What is this? They committed crimes and were caught by desolate sect. These people are not free now. Help is not needed, so please pass by. Zhong Yunshin stepped forward and said. The middle-aged man's face made a strange expression. It was understandable since some young guy was creating a strange sight. "Are you saying you're with desolate sect, young master?" Zhong Yunshin didn't answer and took out his identity tablet from his bosom. It was called a desolate tablet. The tree engraved in golden plating caught the bright sunlight. The middle-aged man's expression became strange upon seeing the tablet. Zhong Yunshin immediately noticed. To this guy, freeing the Deep Martial Alliance young masters was important. Was he trying to pick up crumbs? He seemed to lean more toward the nearby Deep Martial Alliance than distant desolate sect in Hubei. Not everyone who associates with evil sects must be like this guy. They said there were cases where maintaining connections was unavoidable. Few people could maintain their principles before a sharply drawn blade. Drawing a sword immediately like that middle-aged man? Such a guy was another evil sect. He opened his mouth. I can't possibly believe this. Some quite powerful adults seem to have started something with petty collaborative hearts and left it to you. Like ignorant fellows. If they properly knew the Deep Martial Alliance, they could never do this. Had a country bumpkin seriously misunderstood? It was like this with the Shinya White martial faction too. Between places like the 9 sects and small-medium sects, the difference in discernment seemed greater than the difference in martial power. It was when Zhong Yunshin moved his hand to his sword wave. Escort Kim. What's happening? A young man opened the carriage door and came out from the middle of the stopped procession. Ah, young master. You came as a guest but aren't staying seated. The middle-aged man turned his head despite Zhong Yunshin being in front and smiled slightly. A slightly troubled look crossed his face. Zhong Yunshin could guess the reason. The energy waves emanating from the large-eyed young man's body were clear and righteous. At that age with such temperament, at this position, he must be the young master of the righteous Heaven Sword family. They were almost there. The righteous Heaven Sword family was said to also serve as Desolate Sect's branch. Having heard about the Shinya County incident, it was natural to patrol the surroundings with time to spare. Jong Yunshin stepped forward. I am from Desolate Sect. Heavens! I get to be the first in our family to meet Sir Lightning Flash. He seemed to have immediately taken in Jong Yunshin's attire and the tablet in his hand. The righteous Heaven young master approached with an excited face, even using lightness technique. Greetings were exchanged along with words about having heard of his achievements through Desolate Sect's information network. He seemed to have forgotten even to clasp his fists. While the middle-aged man's face distorted, the righteous Heaven young master made a fuss. When I saw the writing about taking the 8 fierce Rakshasa sword's head, I guessed that a person destined to become a dragon had appeared. Indeed, looking now, your eyelight is extraordinary. Are you the righteous Heaven Sword family's young master? Are there more people from the main fortress at your house now? Jong Yunshin asked without being swept up in his energetic momentum. It was a time when hierarchy needed to be clear. Immediately, different colors swirled in the righteous Heaven young master's eyes. His temperament instantly became calm. It seemed this might be his true nature. Yes. I am Hyon Uriang of the righteous Heaven Sword family. Only then did he smile lightly and clasp his fists. Many are already waiting. They said with Sir's arrival, all of Radiant Demon Wing who went out on missions would be gathered. There was also a Shaolin monk. Radiant Demon Wing with a little divine monk, and now Lightning Flash. Today must be an eye-opening day. Thank you for letting me know. Then if you'll excuse me. Jong Yunshin took out a flask from his bosom. He held it in his left hand and tilted it with his right to pour out water. While people watched curiously, at the end of his immediate steps was the escort bureau's middle-aged man. The guy pretending to be an escort said, I still don't believe it. Proving your identity with just one identity tablet? Dwarf clan craftsmanship isn't exclusive to Desolate Sect. The moment young Master Hyon stepped forward, energy waves were felt from your body. Very familiar. You lot just can't hide it. Jong Yunshin operated fate-defying scripture true energy layering at full power. The end of his words rang out behind the middle-aged man as his form whirled around after stomping the ground. His fingertips wrapped in wind felt cold. When he reached out with his water-wet hand to brush the guy's hair, black water stained his hand and a bright red strand of hair was revealed. This means a lot. Jong Yunshin muttered calmly. Chaos broke out among the escort bureau people watching with anxious eyes. The Blood Flame sect's doctrine that they cannot hide their hair was widely known. It seemed unrelated to dyeing with pigments. Such perfect dye had never been heard of. Jinyul, who had acted as a young master, was the same. He had been acting as a Blood Flame sect assassin. However they made it, it would prove as fatal as bald Blood Flame sect members. They said blood techniques were especially quick to achieve upon initiation. If hiding hair is possible, it would inevitably be easy to send many in as spies in various sects and escort bureaus. Unlike the frozen Blood Flame sect member, Hyon Uriang was different. His intuition seemed very quick as his face immediately hardened. Jong Yunshin glanced at Master One Jong and opened his mouth. You said you thought about restoring Shaylin's Guanyin Blue Steel Hand. I want to include Blue Steel Hand in the martial art's name. Would you permit it? Amitabha. Rather, it would be a great honor. He seemed to have noticed what he meant. Master One Jong raised one palm. Banjang. It was Shaylin's etiquette. His attitude toward Jong Yunshin had become this devoted at some point. His speech and behavior had completely changed too. He said it was proper courtesy to a young great master. You worthless trash. How dare you before? The enraged Blood Flame sect member whirled around. As his eyes met Jong Yunshin's, an ominous energy wave sprang forth. Jong Yunshin rather welcomed it. Because considerably refined power could be felt. Perhaps a blood sword master. There might be black strands in the hair stained with dye. Now it's meaningless no matter how many. Among Mount Pingding's escort bureau and the righteous Heaven Sword family's young master, Shaylin's martial way monk, deep martial alliance rising talents. Jong Yunshin's energy as he slowly raised his hand was different from before. His full-body energy waves had an aspect like a Buddhist Dharma king. It was enough to calmly flow past the Blood Flame sect member's sinister momentum as it exploded. "The trash is you," he said. Simultaneously he moved his hand. Chapter 42, Counter Martial Arts, 3. It was the middle-aged man who had emitted energy waves suspicious of being a blood sword master. Zhong Yunshin caught up to such a guy's back in one breath. Even if he had dug into a moment of carelessness as usual, it was surprising. The speed itself was different. He expected power of a completely new system. However, the force wave emitted from his striking hand was different from expected. Even while delivering a fatal strike to the guy's head, it was puzzling. The martial arts he had thought of didn't come out. He struck with physical power. Even that alone was supernatural strength. Puke! Hit in the head, he collapsed from the chin. His entire fallen body twitched. He was already dead. It was a death throw convulsion. With one move against such a guy. Truly advanced martial arts. The exclamations of one Deep Martial Alliance youngster and Hyon Uriang were meaningless. Even the movements he thought had become faster were just results of repeated insights improving true energy efficiency. Zhong Yunshin's senses reaching intuition dissected the phenomenon in detail. He knew immediately. The new old techniques he had tried to unleash were still crude. They hadn't meshed precisely. Inspiration penetrating everything into one. It was always like this. One lightning bolt weaving scattered old techniques into a single martial art. That was all Zhong Yunshin needed. "I'll achieve it soon." He didn't get impatient. They said when the upper Dantian communicated with heaven and earth, the realm of foresight sometimes came. He felt he would be able to create Dharma power martial art soon. Perhaps even today. Zhong Yunshin opened his mouth toward Hyon Uriang. The Blood Flame sect has infiltrated the escort bureau. Can the righteous Heaven Sword family handle it? Of course Mount Pingding's matters are our matters. We can only thank Lightning Flash for finding this. Hyon Uriang clasped his fists once more. He too was a famous family's heir. Things like handling matters were like that. The proper cultivation that direct descendants of well-taught famous families naturally possessed. What Zhong Yunshin, who had been the Zhong family's troublemaker, couldn't have. However, Hyon Uriang's gaze looking at him was strange. It didn't seem like simple admiration. "Excuse me, but may I ask your age?" "I'm 16 this year." "The right age. If you don't have a marriage arrangement, would it be all right to show you my younger sister? She's a very beautiful and kind child." Hyon Uriang spoke in a very casual tone. What did he just say? Zhong Yunshin was rarely flustered. He just didn't show it. Marriage. Wouldn't that be the thing furthest from him? A life of having children with someone and living together for 100 years. It seemed reachable only in dreams. He politely declined. "I appreciate your words, but I lack time even to hold a sword. It would be hard to call me a good marriage prospect. Since my family met with annihilation. A promising desolate sect master is itself a very good marriage prospect. I hope you'll think about it over time." He let Hyon Uriang's smiling words pass. Zhong Yunshin threw his gaze north. It was time for the scattered radiant demon wing to gather again. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. "I knew you'd be safe. You did really well, Sir Zhong." Hyon Wenchang welcomed him among over 10 large, clean pavilion buildings. He had quite a few wounds on his body. Perhaps from being hit by blood technique true energy, the bleeding hadn't even stopped completely. Blood seeped through the cotton cloth wrapped in various places, but he still grinned. After a brief reunion with him, Zhong Yunshin suddenly asked. "No internal injuries?" "Fortunately not. Sir Zhong looks perfectly fine. Because I escaped to the outskirts and took a boat." "Ah. Come to think of it, they said you caught those viciously evil Deep Martial Alliance youngsters. That too was really well done." Hyon Wenchang laughed as if delighted. Though he briefly grimaced as if his wounds opened, his smile didn't disappear. The reasons major evil sects were bound together and were called the 13 Heavens, and each were different. Zhong Yunshin had seen Sword Art Flower try to kill a monk without hesitation. Though they said Hyon Wenchang had shown inexplicable hostility toward famous major sects, he thought this was now a smile made as one walking purely on the righteous path. Zhong Yunshin walked together with Hyon Wenchang. They passed several streams of sunlight brightly piercing between pavilions. He had just declined the righteous Heaven Sword family's goodwill offering to attach attendants. Hyon Wenchang, who had already eaten several meals, told of the circumstances meanwhile. The remaining radiant demon wing broke through the encirclement and pushed straight to Mount Pingding. Baek Emirio had worried about Zhong Yunshin, but was relieved by words heard from torturing a Blood Flame sect member. Everyone had confidence. That failed Deep Martial Alliance rising talents couldn't do anything to Lightning Flash. Before long, Zhong Yunshin could see Ma Jin and the radiant demon wing seniors. The scar on Ma Jin's chin rose slightly. You achieved merit even in that situation. How is the squad leader? The seventh apostle's neck. Zhong Yunshin asked calmly. The radiant demon wing lord called Hell Life turned his eyes. That demoness body technique compatibility wasn't good with me. If Chong Myong had reached my level, he could have killed her. You call that an excuse? Chong Myong teased with a grin. As usual, Baek Emirio grabbed Zhong Yunshin's shoulders and looked him over before nodding. Healthy to an excessive degree. Your energy seems to be changing once again. Usually this is the age to build your vessel, but you keep advancing endlessly. Thank you, senior. She had been acting like a sister for some time now. He turned slightly to remove Baek Emirio's hands. Though grateful, it was still awkward. Zhong Yunshin turned his gaze. Then what about the Blood Flame sect pursuit mission? The seventh apostle seems to have information about their headquarters. We wait. We plan to respond in agreement with the righteous Heaven Sword family. Ma Jin spoke briefly before continuing. The seventh apostle's demeanor was strange. They too seemed to have received extermination orders against us. From Desolate Sect main fortress and Blood Flame sect headquarters perspective it's a local battle, but for us it's all-out war. Can we know the timing? Their advantage is that we don't know that. We must counterstrike. We have a secret plan. The righteous Heaven Sword family's mechanism formation, we won't be caught in a surprise attack. They said famous martial families were generally pavilions built up with corpses and blood. Famous families had many enemies. Ingenious plans to prepare for invasion had to develop. Mechanism formation. He had heard of it. They said it created strange phenomena by weaving together strange techniques and principles of great nature. Naturally, third-rate martial families like the Zhong family didn't have such things. They said the main sect's dwarf clan craftsmen came personally to make it. Those blood demons won't know about it. The day darkened along with Ma Jin's smiling words. Zhong Yunshin met and greeted Radiant Demon First Team. They too were relieved at their junior's safety. Afterwards, after reuniting with the Zhong family administrator and little divine monk Gak Zhong, he entered his sleeping quarters. Zhong Yunshin sat on the bed without immediately falling asleep. Let's organize the oral chants. He sat cross-legged wearing moonlight as clothes. The meditation continued until daybreak. He didn't move at all until the blanket wrapped around him changed from moonlight to sunlight. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. After breakfast he received Hyon Uriang's invitation. The content of the message was interesting. He said he would be grateful if Zhong Yunshin minded his conduct since his younger sister would be there. He even sent splendid silk clothes. It seemed he was trying to keep the words he had finally spoken. Zhong Yunshin pinched the clothes between his thumb and index finger. As he looked at them strangely for a moment. Radiant Demon Wing. Ma Jin's voice full of true energy. The door made of good wood shook lengthily. For a moment he felt the atmosphere boiling. It was the Radiant Demon Wing Lord's call. It was a signal of enemy raid. He immediately grabbed the desolate sword. The sunlight brushing the pitch-black sword wave and scabbard shimmered threateningly. Zhong Yunshin, who stepped out of the room, was already fully prepared. The seniors were gathered in the courtyard. Hyon Wenchang too came running hurriedly. Before Ma Jin could explain the situation, Hyon Wenchang, who was running, caught a hidden weapon shot at his head. His lips rose smoothly. Interesting. Hyon Wenchang smiled as he crushed the long flying needle with one hand. This time will be different. He muttered while glancing at Zhong Yunshin. Ma Jin, who lightly patted Hyon Wenchang's shoulder as he approached, spoke as if grinding his words. Fire bombs exploded at the south gate here. They're completely crazy. The formation must be completely crushed. No regard for imperial court or anything. There were rumors, but did the Tang clan really go crazy and make these? What just exploded must have been leaked from them. Bekemirio and Chong Myong each said a word. Before they knew it, they were watching a blood flame sect apostle gently approaching after destroying the back gate. The number of blood sword masters and blood flame sect members spread behind was tremendous. It looked to be easily 200. No way. The seventh apostle's elegant gait strangely focused everyone's attention. She slowly moved her lips. The Tang clan is an orthodox sect, only in name. Her smile was seductive. The smile was red. Ma Jin stepped forward. You sow distrust. You, demoness. You don't need to try so hard. Desolate sect watches all sects under heaven. It's always been that way. All the martial sects and noble clans under heaven, desolate sect. Hypocrisy that won't let go of its grip on the world. The evil sect's demoness has a long tongue. Our sect's blood flame will cleanse the world, see the blood world even in death. Is this how all those immersed in evil sects speak? Zhong Yunshin thought alone. The seventh apostle, smiling with closed lips, arrogantly jerked her chin. Simultaneously, the blood flame sect's unique momentum surged like military formation. It was the start of fierce battle. Clang dash. Materialized energy waves clawed the dirt ground. Ma Jin clashed with the seventh apostle. As righteous heaven sword family masters came running, and Shaolin monks and radiant demon wing mixed with blood flame sect members. From the battle's opening, Zhong Yunshin captured the two supreme masters in his eyes. The enemy's momentum was fierce after striking a weak point with fire bombs. Sinister waves of true energy surging forth stabbed at skin. While Haiyan Wanchang blocked one blood sword master's blade, Bekemirio cut past the guy's neck. It was a life-and-death battle. Even martial artists who emphasized righteousness face was a laughable matter in group battle. Splash dash! Zhong Yunshin cut off one blood flame sect member's arm. Holding the desolate sword, he prowled around like scattered leaves. Yet he didn't take his gaze off Ma Jin and the seventh apostle. Blood scent was heavily contained in the occasional winds. There too. Support attached to the seventh apostle. The eye techniques of three blood swordmasters surrounding her and Ma Jin were impressive. The sword strikes they only unleashed when blows clash seemed to disperse Ma Jin's attention. They were outstanding ones even among sect swords. Perfect. Zhong Yunshin muttered quietly. Then he slowly moved his steps. Simultaneously he lightly twisted his body this way and that. Bewilderment seemed to seep from the blood flame sect members' weapons as they brushed past. Body technique gradually approaching completion. Before he knew it, martial prowess similar to a blue level was flourishing. Step. Step. The closer he got, the more strongly the seventh apostle's energy wave stimulated his entire body. Was it Dharma's voice? Intent newly guiding true energy arose. The ominousness surging like a storm was moving Zhong Yunshin to another realm. Clang! Boom! In the gap while Supreme Master's force waves swept the surroundings. Zhong Yunshin calmly stepped in. It was thanks to the Blood Sword Master's dissolving force waves while trying to help the seventh apostle. Ma Jin's eyes widened seeing him, and the seventh apostle's lips rose slightly. Not knowing your place. The seventh apostle's long fingers held true energy. Even while exchanging moves with Ma Jin, tremendous density could be felt. She had spare energy to casually strike out her left hand while focusing on her opponent. The three blood sword masters were directing sword strikes only at Ma Jin. To Zhong Yunshin it was rather welcome. The seventh apostle's hand had already slowed enough. The upper dantian baihui acupoint at his crown white hot. Zhong Yunshin's head went numb. Little divine monk Gak Zhong's fist and leg techniques, Shaolin monk's Dharma talks and all the old techniques he possessed tangled and burst like lightning. The light net arising in his mind created light's old techniques, and inspiration striking in an instant blaze to write 5 characters. Demon-destroying blue steel hand. Zhong Yunshin immediately created and extended a hand technique. Divine energy gathered in the force wave. It was a very faint blue light. Puke dash. The seventh apostle's casually extended hand bounced back. It felt like dissolving force waves with extreme compatibility. Storm-like winds gathered and distorted everywhere. Foreign matter caught on Zhong Yunshin's hand that advanced straight through. At the end of the straight force wave containing pale blue light was her left eye. Swish dash. The They said when learning blood techniques, the entire body's senses rise sharply. Was pain the same? The first blood sword master Zhong Yunshin killed was like that. When a sword pierced his abdomen, he couldn't come to his senses. The seventh apostle clutching one eye seemed the same. Blood seeped through gaps in her white hand. Her slender body also trembled. You dash. Now she couldn't handle Ma Jin. She created distance with tremendous body technique. It happened in an instant. It was an opportunity. Ma Jin cut down the 3 blood sword masters at once, but he too couldn't hide the shock coloring his face. Everyone who began looking this way one by one was the same. The hall filling with silence amid the battlefield's clamor. You said blood world. Now you'll only see half of it. Zhong Yunshin, who spoke calmly, shook his left hand once. The blood remaining on his hand's back even after being widely scattered bothered him.